after further review, a Clemson student's perspective on sports.
It's AFR time, baby. Let's get up. Let's get rolling.
That's right. Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business. We play the
Okay, so if Trevor Lawrence isn't either the second or third string quarterback in the fall, I shave my head and you get a tattoo?
Well, you gotta get a head tattoo. You gotta shave your
get a head tattoo. Now we're talking.
And get a head tattoo.
And a personal foul on number 99 of the defense. After he tackled the quarterback, he's giving them business down there at the 15-yard penalty.
And now your host, Jay, Bradley, and Evan.
Well, good evening, everyone. AFR is on the radio. Thanks so much for spending another Monday afternoon, evening with us. Jay Smith, Bradley Kendall, Evan McDowell. You're listening to WCCP 105.5 The Roars. After further review, college football talk. Bradley, week 2 is in the books. Got to preview week 3, but we got a lot of games that we got to recap and talk about. So let's dive right into it after further review.
It was a week of streaks being broken in college football, namely the Kentucky Wildcats, which we'll start with against Florida, breaking that 31-year drought, which was one of 4 of the longest streaks in the country against the Florida Gators.
No love for the Jayhawks.
Hey, you didn't let me finish. The Jayhawks also ending their streak. The last time they won a road game was, I believe, 41 games ago? 46 games ago?
I want to say 2009.
I think LeBron was still back in the Heat. Or not even then, by the time they were finally, scrapping up a road win. But good for Kansas. Kansas is actually finally favored in a game for the first time, I think, ever against an FCS opponent this week. A lot to talk about. I was at the A&M game this week, so didn't get to watch as much college football as I wanted to, but I enjoyed
experience
heck of a game.
An amazing environment. Yeah, this 31-game streak, like we mentioned, is the 4th longest in NCAA history. You got behind that is Notre Dame over Navy, 43 games from 1964 to 2006. Nebraska over Kansas was 36, 1969 to 2004, and then Oklahoma over Kansas State was 32 from 1937 to 1968. So not a ton of huge caliber teams in those series, which is probably understandable. But still, hey, it's good to see Kansas finally doing something that's noteworthy.
It's about time. And that coach might have just saved his job with that win after, scrapping that game against Nichols away in week 1. So good for the Jayhawk fans. They finally can actually enjoy a football game instead of waiting for basketball season coming up soon. But going back to that Kentucky game, big surprise. Mark Stoops looking for that big signature win, had that game against Louisville and Lamar Jackson that they won a couple years ago, and finally got that monkey off their back. That 27-16 win against the Florida Gators. Lots of love for them. Lot to not love for Dan Mullen, though, in the Gators.
300 yards rushing for the Wildcats. Over 300 yards rushing. They recorded 303 on 41 carries. They also had 151 yards receiving, but again, their dominance with running the ball was really the difference here. They kind of controlled the time of possession and really, were able to look pretty good against Florida in a road environment. I felt like Florida would show up with it being at the Swamp and all, but overall impressed with the Wildcats' effort.
If you're Florida, you can't lose this game. I mean, Felipe Franks, finally a couple years of experience under his belt. You got Dan Mullen, the guy you want under the helm. It's at home. You got a chance to extend this streak. All signs pointed towards Florida winning this game. I don't see how you let this one slip. I mean, 16 points. It's like Jim McElwain never even left Gainesville. I'm very disappointed in what I saw for Florida after some people were predicting them to maybe contend for the SEC East. And, we'll get to a team later that also thought they had a chance to contend for that division title as well that couldn't break through.
Next game they wanted to mention, this is one that we were a little bit split on last week.
A little bit.
You were picking...
we were on opposite sides of the spectrum.
You were picking the Spartans. I was picking Arizona State. The Sun Devils prevailed. Huge win, I feel like, for Herm Edwards and the program. They get to 2-0. Last-second field goal gets them the win 16-13 over the Spartans. Is there despair setting in now for Michigan State because they looked bad at home against Utah State, and now they've lost on the road to Arizona State, a team which you didn't believe in, Bradley. So do you feel like it's maybe time to hit the panic button?
No, I mean, I had them at 3-9 this year. I thought the Pac-12 was a little bit stronger than most people.
You had Arizona State at 3-9.
I had Arizona State at 3-9. Yeah, I thought
beat Michigan State.
Okay, yeah, we got that. I know I was wrong. We don't have to keep reiterating.
No,
it. Yeah.
So is Michigan State in trouble?
Yeah, I think they're a little more in trouble than we thought before. I think with the Big Ten, the strength of that, not only the conference, but that division itself that they have to play on. There's not going to be any easy wins. This is Arizona State's 10th straight win at home against a Big Ten team. So odds were against them, but I'm disappointed in what I saw, not only at Michigan State's team, but at their run game. LJ Scott has been there for literally forever. You expect them to come out and be able to have a great balanced attack, and it just wasn't there. I thought Mark D'Antonio would at least be able to whip these guys up and get them ready to go for a road environment against, let's be honest, kind of a subpar Arizona State team, but the narrative has changed. Herm Edwards really changing the program around very quickly down there in Tempe.
If I had asked either one of you last week if an unranked Power 5 team was hosting a ranked Power 5 team and the leading rusher in that game had 27 yards total on the ground, who would you think would have won that game? The ranked team on the road or the unranked team at home?
Oh, the ranked team.
Ranked team on the road.
Arizona State starting running back Eno Benjamin finished with 27 yards on the ground in that game, 13 carries. He averaged 2 yards a carry. His longest rush of the day was 6 yards.
308.
Well, that's what saved him. That's what saved him.
380 passing yards. They tore up Michigan State's secondary.
I mean, yeah, but Michigan State's always been a good run defensive team, but to get that torn up, it's like Clemson this past week and getting torn up in the air.
Oh, I know. That's my point. If I had told you, and we didn't, or Texas A&M didn't run the ball well against Clemson either, but if I had told you that Arizona State's leading rusher was going to finish with 27 yards on the ground last weekend, you wouldn't have thought Michigan State was going to win that game.
Not a chance. I would have said, yeah, I'll take what you're drinking, and I will absolutely take the Spartans on the road, and I did. I thought this would be a game where they make up for the lack of effort in the Week 1 game against Utah State, and now they're sitting there basically kind of 0-2 after they almost slipped one up in Week 1. And
it feels like 0-2.
It feels like 0-2. Yeah. Now for Arizona
0-2.
State, the ceiling is the roof, as Michael Jordan would say.
So now all of a sudden you are more optimistic for the Sun Devils. I mean, you had them going 3-9. You still have them going 3-9.
After what I saw, and the preseason, and all that, take it with a grain of salt. But after what I've seen,
there's not much of a preseason
at Manny Wilkins and that gang. What is it, N'Keal Harry, that wide receivers? I knew he was going to be good for Arizona State. But from what I saw to those guys, I really think this team has a great chance to contend in the Pac-12 South and even the Pac-12 in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's still, I understand, and I was optimistic on him last week. It's still early. I mean, it's 2 games into his coaching tenure. We don't really know. We don't have all of our questions answered yet. Yes, this is a big win for them. I believe Michigan State was ranked, top 15. So that's a top 15 win for them at home, week 2 of year 1 of Herm Edwards. Hopefully the, positivity and everything, the momentum continues. I think they're going to have a good year. I mean, hopefully they'll get 7-8 wins. I don't expect them to be contending with Pac-12 championships until a few years down the road.
Very possible at this point. A win against a Michigan State team at home, that does a lot for a program.
This does a lot for their credibility.
Does a lot for the program. Yeah, and if the schedule shapes up easily going forward, Washington might not be what they think we are. USC is a very winnable game now. There's opportunities down the road.
Speaking of the Trojans, we want to keep it in the Pac-12. We're going to move on to number 17 USC. They took on number 10 Stanford. This game was ugly. It was not even close. It never was close.
As every Stanford game
Bryce Love
goes.
Led the Cardinal to this win here. It was 17-3 was the final score. USC, I believe that was the lowest number of points they had been held to against Stanford
since like 1940.
It was like 1930s or 1940s. I mean, it's been a long.
It's the third time in the last 50 years they've been held without a touchdown. One of them was against Bama a couple years ago. But this is kind of what I predicted. I knew this was going to kind of be the narrative coming into this game. JT Daniels, he did well his first game as a freshman, but this is a whole different ball game. The Stanford crowd actually didn't even show up, which was kind of amazing for a top 20 matchup. Half that upper deck was completely empty, but it's still a big time top 10 team you got to face, and he looked like a freshman. Let's be honest.
It was nice to see Heisman contender Bryce Love kind of get back on track from where we saw him last year after a very underwhelming season opening performance against San Diego State. 18 carries, 29 yards, 3 receptions, 18 yards, 0 total touchdowns. Those aren't Heisman numbers, and I know a lot of people pin Bryce Love to be the Heisman winner. So to come back after that kind of week, rush the ball 22 times for 136 yards and a touchdown looks pretty good on the stat sheet.
I think this proves that Stanford's one of the most balanced teams in America. I mean, you got...
you can make that argument.
Academically and athletically.
Here you go, yeah. You got the defense. David Shaw is a great coach. The offense now is looking formidable. You got Bryce Love always to go to. But I think the key for Stanford this year is they're not just going to have to go to Bryce Love and depend on him to have a big game each week if they're going to win. They got the defense to hold guys under 10 points. They got the quarterback now that can chuck the ball down the field and take a little bit of the load off of him. I think this team is a lot better than I thought.
You think they're going to give Washington a good?
Oh yeah,
run
no,
for the money
they have just the type of defense that is
are you not picking
capable of beating Washington?
Utah is hosting Washington this weekend, and before we went on air,
Watch out for the Utes.
Yeah, you're picking Utah maybe. in this
Watch out
game.
for the Utes on the road. They upset Cal a couple years ago when they were top 5. Just watch out for them.
Not so high on the Huskies anymore. Well,
I'm still high, but I was a little bit disappointed.
I mean,
in
you're
what
picking
saw
Utah to
in that Auburn game.
to beat them.
Yeah, if I'm going to pick an upset,
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that game.
Fair. Well, my upset, like I said, paid off with this week or last week, Arizona State over Michigan State. But moving on,
And your potential upset in this game didn't really pay
it
out
did
too
not.
well.
Other side of the country, now we go to the SEC. Georgia took on South Carolina at Willie B. It was a great environment at kickoff, and about 3 minutes in, it fell flat. Georgia rolled them 41-17. There's been a lot of discussion, a lot of talk about this game. Is this the end of the Muschamp era, or is this is this the sign of a larger issue at South Carolina? Personally, I don't think so. I do think, and we'll get to everyone's opinions here in a second, I do think that South Carolina had a lot of things that didn't go their way in the opening minutes. The balls that, squirted out and got pick six. You had some bad miscues offensively and defensively. But that being said, you've got to be able to respond to adversity. And South Carolina didn't do it. They had the home environment. They had everything stacked in their favor, so to speak, against a team in Georgia that's more talented than they are. Like, they're just flat out more talented. And they weren't able to overcome the adversity. And so
I told you last week, I don't
they
think
got
Jake
routed.
Bentley can handle the big-time atmosphere, and he kind of proved that. I mean, the game was closer early on, but by the third quarter, Georgia kind of took over. I think the talent was definitely different there. I think Jake Fromm proved to us why he's one of the most efficient and reliable quarterbacks across the country. And I didn't think South Carolina was prepared for this type of environment and this type of game early on in the season. And this shows that Georgia's for real.
Yeah, it answered a
They
lot.
really are
It
for real.
answered a lot of my questions that I had about Georgia, whether or not they could handle. Because admit to it or not, Williams-Brice, even though it was an afternoon kickoff, it was still a great environment, and it was definitely rowdy. However, that being said, some miscues by South Carolina. I mean, 3 minutes into this football game, it was 14-0, and
You just can't have that at home.
Even watching that on TV, I almost did the surrender cobra for them. I was just like, what is going on?
You take the crowd out of the game, which is something that you got to depend on, like A&M did, to stay in a game against the
Exactly.
top 3 team. And that's just, they weren't able to do that.
And credit to Georgia. They
all the credit in the
stayed
world
on
to
the
the
gas. They stayed on the gas. They didn't let up. Their best performance of the game was definitely, like you mentioned, in the third quarter. And by the time the fourth quarter rolled around, it didn't matter. It was over.
Georgia basically cemented itself as the SEC's champions, I think, this week. I don't think there's any chance that any team, not even Florida, can compete with them after Florida took the L to Kentucky. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Georgia right now is head and shoulders above the entire SEC, outside of Alabama, and I don't see any chance of an upset happening. And like you said, this was probably the one big chance that it was going to happen, and it didn't.
No, I mean, yeah. And so do you think, I guess just going off this a little bit more, either Bradley or Evan, do y'all think that this is a sign of a problem in South Carolina? Like, is this an issue, or is the fact that this was the number 3 team in the country, arguably, one of the best teams in the country, could make the championship this year? It's just, it's just the way it is.
It's an issue.
They were more talented.
Will Muschamp's not a coach that can get you wins when teams are scoring 30-plus points on you. It's just not going to happen. He's a defensive-minded coach. I told you, if Georgia hits 30 points, they're going to win this game. I don't think Bentley's the quarterback to get it done. That mix of him and the coach, I just don't like, and I don't see this team winning more than 8 games. I really don't.
I think it speaks more to how good Georgia is than how bad South Carolina is. Because at the half, this was a 10-point game. And
Well,
it was
I mean,
competitive as we expected it to be. And then the third quarter happened, and all of a sudden it wasn't. So you take away that third quarter, all of a sudden, this is a pretty close game, all
But are
things
South
considered.
Carolina's expectations supposed to be good, or are they supposed to be great? I think they want to be great, and that's what they were.
Of course they do.
That's what they were trying to convince us of early on in the season.
Well, of course, because that's just coming with the territory of being in the SEC. Everybody in the SEC has that same mentality that, our football is better than yours. Whether or not that's the case, that's what they're going to think because it's the SEC. It just means more.
If our expectations for South Carolina to win 8 games, then I'm saying, okay, Jake Bentley and Will Muschamp are the combination to get that. I'm fine with that.
Oh,
and
no,
this didn't change my narrative.
I agree with you. In an 8 or 9 win season, like across the board, all things considered, that's a pretty solid season. But in the SEC, that's not good enough. Just like Jake Bentley's stat line in the SEC is not going to be good enough. 30 for 47, 269 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. That's not a terrible stat line. It's not like Jake Bentley lost them this game. And one of those interceptions wasn't even his fault. So if you take that away, he threw for 270 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, and he went 30 for 47. That's pretty good completion
You're
percentage.
not going to be Georgia with only scored 17 points.
You're not.
That's just not going to happen.
Which is why I'm saying this speaks more to how good Georgia is than how bad you want South Carolina to be.
So do we? Well, that's fair. Do we agree that the toughest test for Georgia is going to come
Auburn.
LSU or Auburn?
It's going to be Auburn.
You think it's
'cause
Auburn?
They beat them last year. Yeah, they know what it takes.
It depends on how consistent Auburn can be because.
And also LSU.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Don't Auburn and LSU
They
play
play
this
so
week?
you will see.
I think the winner of that game will be
fair.
Georgia's toughest test.
Where is the LSU game for Georgia?
Off the top of my head, it's at LSU. So it's gonna be
there you go.
Death
Night
Valley.
game at LSU. That's at least 10 points for the Tigers right there. So that could change things. I don't know.
Well, just
Does
as
it,
I
though?
felt, just as I felt
Yeah.
like South Carolina was hosting Georgia, and I felt like being at Williams-Brice, that was going to, put.
But LSU's a
wind
better
in South
team.
Carolina's
LSU's a
sails.
better team than South Carolina.
But look,
I still think you're selling them a
if
little
you
bit
were,
short.
if you're, let's sit for like just a minute because we got to go to commercial. I know, but let's just compare some of Georgia's assets to some of LSU's assets. Who has the better quarterback?
Georgia.
Who has the better running back?
Probably Georgia. Yeah.
Who has better receivers? That one might be a toss-up.
I'll go Terry Godwin at Georgia. Yeah. I'll
And
give that.
who has the better defense?
LSU's got a pretty dang good defense, I will say.
Have
But
you-
Georgia's
have
defense,
you seen Georgia's
defense is
defense?
good, I will say, yes. But comparatively to the other teams in the SEC, yes, Georgia obviously is going to be the best one.
There you go.
But if we're arguing between above average teams like Auburn, LSU, and South Carolina, I'll take LSU.
Yeah, no, it'll be close. I think on paper this is a very similar matchup, but I think you're right. Being in Baton Rouge definitely plays a factor.
100%.
It should, yeah. No, it should. Well, I don't know. Interesting discussion, but overall, nothing besides, I guess, the Michigan State-Arizona State game that some people didn't see coming, but no real big surprises. Nothing
No,
too shocking.
I wasn't too surprised outside of that Arizona State game. I did see Purdue ended up losing to Eastern Michigan, which I totally did not see happening.
I did see that.
And
They're
Arizona
0-2
getting
now.
absolutely smoked by Houston.
Houston, I picked Arizona. I felt like
Jeez,
they were
Khalil
going
Tate.
to rebound, but the ship is
I
sinking.
can tell you
right
what,
now
all the
in
A&M
Arizona.
fans in College Station were pretty happy to see Kevin Sumlin chalking up that L in week 2 for sure.
Well, hey, Herm Edwards is 2-0. Kevin Sumlin and Chip Kelly are both 0-2. So what do we know about predicting college coaches? Nothing, apparently. Got to take a break. When we come back, we'll break down the Clemson-Texas A&M game. Stick with us. That's next.
David Green and the professionals at Green Law Firm understand your rights when it comes to any issue with the IRS. The IRS has instituted the Fresh Start program, and David Green knows how to use the Fresh Start program to your best advantage. The Green Law Firm can't change your past, but they can certainly change your future. For a free strategy session, call the Green Law Firm at 271-7940 or go online at greenlaw.legal. That's greenlaw.legal.
Whether your adventure takes you to the top of Chimney Rock or the shores of Lake Jocassee or the woods for camping, Elkmont Trading Company in Clemson has everything you need for your next adventure. Serving the upstate since 1995, Elkmont offers fly fishing gear from Orvis and Sims, as well as the area's best selection of kayaks and camping gear, featuring Chacos, Birkenstocks, Patagonia, Southern Marsh, Columbia, Yeti, Eno hammocks, Kavu rope bags, mountain khakis, and more. Elkmont also has kayaks and stand-up paddleboards for rent, so you can try before you buy. Are you hungry? Try Elkmont's barbecue sandwich or a pint of locally brewed craft beer from one of Elkmont's 16 taps. There really is something for everyone at Elkmont. So remember, if you haven't been to Elkmont, you haven't been to Clemson.
Not only does Maserati Lotus Greenville on Lawrence Road have one of the largest selection of luxury pre-owned vehicles, they also have the best luxury automotive repair facility in the upstate. The skilled technicians at Euro Automotive Upstate work on all luxury and domestic vehicles with pricing of an independent shop. Mention this ad and get 10% off service. Euro Automotive, upstate trusted quality with affordable pricing at Maserati Lotus Greenville, 1450 Lawrence Road.
If you are thinking about buying or selling a home, or a place to start a new business, or you need some acreage, then you need to call Coldwell Banker Hugh Durham & Associates. Hugh Durham has been in business for over 45 years, a member of IPTE for 54 years, and he has the same dedication to Clemson athletics as he has to his business. Put the dedicated and experienced experts to work for you. Call Coldwell Banker Hugh Durham at 225-3788 or online at cbhdpros.com and get ready to be treated like family.
Diamonds and Gold Direct in Anderson has been named Anderson's best jewelry store for the 4th year in a row. From a vast selection of engagement rings to their designer collection, Diamonds and Gold Direct has earned their place as Anderson's best. See their specials of the month, featuring diamonds, emeralds, and cultured pearls. Diamonds and Gold Direct, Anderson's best jewelry store, Main Street, across from the mall.
Diamonds and Gold Direct. We Score a touchdown with Founders Credit Union. With convenient electronic services like Founders app and mobile deposit, Founders online and online applications, you can spend more time cheering on your Clemson Tigers and less time worrying about your finances. For product information, visit foundersfcu.com. Not a Founders member? Visit relaxjoinfounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA and a proud partner of Clemson Athletics.
It happens every time. When a hailstorm hits, there's an increase of people who want to take your money for roof repairs. Problem is, many of them are just trying to take advantage of you and don't really know what they're doing. Gilstrap Roofing has been around for decades. Trust Gilstrap Roofing to handle the repairs and deal with the insurance. Just because someone knocks on your door with a card that says they're a roofer doesn't mean they'll do quality work at a reasonable price. Call Gilstrap Roofing, 269-1232.
And now, back to After Further Review.
Welcome back, AFR on your radio. It's now time to dive into Clemson A&M discussion.
A lot to get to with this
Mr.
game.
Kendall actually made the 34-hour-ish round-trip car drive out
just about that.
to
Only
College
about
Station.
3 or 4 wrong turns, so not a terrible
And you
ratio.
did this with 3 other guys.
3 other
So
guys.
you did take.
Hopped into a nice little Honda Accord, and thankfully we were able
You
to.
took shifts.
We did take. Oh,
Not my Honda Accord, by the way. I didn't go anywhere. I stayed my happy butt here in Tiger Town.
Yeah.
No, Matthew Peterson, thanks for giving that Honda out, buddy. We really appreciate it. We were considering taking 8 guys in a van, but we figured we wouldn't even make it past Vicksburg, Mississippi by the time that van breaks down, 100%. But,
You figured driving 10 hours all the way to Texas was a bad enough idea. You didn't need 4 extra
Was it
guys in
only
a van
10
to do
hours?
it.
Was it only 10 hours?
Oh, no, it
longer
was
than that.
about 15
Yeah,
hours.
15,
if you factor
14,
in about
15.
9 Waffle House stops, that's one thing. I did not realize how many Waffle Houses there are across the country. I did a little recap yesterday on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure there is a Waffle House for every single person on this earth. In this country. It is remarkable.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Like McDonald's. I mean, you just see the big yellow and black, I guess neon kind of signs
But
hanging up on the.
100% would do it again. I probably wouldn't do it again for a couple more weeks just to try to recover a little bit. It's amazing it was only a 1 hour time difference. I feel jet lagged almost after driving that much. But
I tell you,
it was fun. It was great.
I've made that trip, family trip, several years ago. We drove further. We drove out to Vegas, and there's just something about being in the car for that long that it just drains you.
Through the night. That's what really did it. Like,
Yeah, that's
when you
true.
can actually look outside. Now, not saying there's much to see in the eastern side of Texas.
Well, there's nothing in the west side, I can
But
tell you.
when you can actually look outside and see stuff, it makes it a little more bearable. But yeah, driving through the night in the middle of Texas was one of the most daunting tasks ever.
So did the other people who were not driving actually get to sleep, or were y'all jamming out?
I mean,
was the Spotify playlist?
We
in full
tried.
effect?
I blasted "Welcome to the Jungle" once everyone fell asleep to try and wake them up because I was starting to fade and needed some buddies to talk to. So
Yeah.
that was fun. Evan, what you got?
Do you want to take a guess of how many Waffle House locations there are in the continental United States?
I do know how many Cracker Barrels there are, but
Oh,
Waffle
there's tons of
Houses.
Cracker Barrels.
Oh, is it over 1,000?
It is over 1,000.
I'm gonna go 1,251.
I'm going like.
It's probably some like significant number.
1,600?
1,600 is the winner. It's 2,100.
Oh my
gosh!
And
I was not thinking.
would you care to wager how many different states those 2,100 locations are spread out
Probably
across?
in just like the southeast. There's not that
So it's
many
not all
out
50
west.
then.
It's not all 50.
I'm gonna go.
There's no Waffle House
30
in Montana.
30.
That whole state doesn't have a Waffle House?
No, it's a very
Montana.
southern regional
It's
thing.
huge.
Montana doesn't have anything in it.
35.
Exactly. Neither does Texas.
What's your number? 35.
States, I'll go 40.
Ooh, you're both too high this time. It's 25 states in the United States.
How many Waffle Houses per mile are there then? Because I swear to you, I mean, we missed our turn going to one of them, and there were about 8 more on the next couple exits after that. So like, it didn't even matter.
Yeah, that's all right. Hey, time to talk some football. Clemson A&M. This game, Bradley thought was going to be a little bit.
I thought Clemson was going to handle it pretty easily. I will
we
say.
were going to handle it with ease, but
It looked like we
closer.
were early on. I mean, we jumped out
Yes.
at a 14-3 lead. But all right, we're coasting now.
we
We'll
had
make this a 2-score
opportunities,
game.
several opportunities throughout the game to kind of put the nail in the coffin, so to speak, take the crowd out of the game.
And listen, that crowd
over
was
and over.
was nothing to take lightly. It was definitely, the 12th man was out in full force. I've seen it on TV a couple times, but when you're actually sitting there, even for the Friday night midnight yell, when you're sitting there, trying to listen to the game and watch the game, I mean, it is extremely distracting even from the top level.
I think
can't picture being down on the field.
I think too, like, because your seat was in the top level of the stadium, so not only were you able to appreciate that in the view from there, but also seeing Death Valley, we have 80,000 people, but when you're in the student section, usually you're pretty close to the field level.
Kyle
so you don't
dwarfed
look,
Death Valley.
You don't look behind you. I think the thing about Kyle Field is, if I'm not mistaken, it's ground level and it's raised.
Well,
whereas
all of Texas is ground level.
Well, whereas Death Valley is mostly, I mean, the only part of the stadium that's above ground, so to speak, is the upper deck.
Exactly. Yeah, you could literally see everything. I mean, you could see from about 3 or 4 miles away all the way down to the next city. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was crazy. It was a great view at halftime, I will say it. Great way to entertain yourself while the band was being played. So, yeah, tremendous environment. I easily would say it's probably the best college environment I've ever seen in the limited number of games I've been to, and I would 100% go back and watch it again.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a cool trip. Let's talk a little bit more about the game, though. This one, I know that we went with the 2 quarterback system, and there's a whole, we could spend an hour talking about quarterback play in this game.
We could spend multiple hours talking about quarterback play in this game.
We could. Kelly Bryant came in the first 2 possessions. Then you saw Trevor Lawrence come in. I think Lawrence got 3 possessions total.
He had one very nice possession.
3 or 4.
That took about 4 seconds.
First play from scrimmage was obviously noteworthy with the throw to T. Higgins. Beautiful ball, beautiful catch.
Randy Moss was smiling watching that game for sure.
Amazing
Higgins
play.
mossed him.
And really, it set the tone kind of for the game for Clemson, because it seemed like, okay, if Kelly can't get the offense rolling, get touchdowns, even though he's able to there at the beginning of the game, he had amazing 3rd down conversions.
Oh yeah, no, that was great.
That first touchdown.
100%. And the thing was, like, that first half, Clemson really had 2 big plays. That was about it.
Mm-hmm.
We had the nice run down the field. I think Amari Rodgers had that crossing pattern where he was able to break free. And then you had T. Higgins down the field for that 64-yard touchdown. Other than that,
well, your only scoring plays in the first quarter are Kelly Bryant's touchdown run and then T. Higgins.
Yeah.
Those are your scoring plays. And Kelly Bryant's run was a yard.
And from about 4 minutes to go in the first quarter to about 9 minutes left in the third quarter, we were silent. I mean, yeah, we had a couple nice drives here and there, but nothing noteworthy where we actually ended up getting points. And it just, there seemed like there was way too much potential there to not score, and somehow we were able to find a way to stay quiet.
I felt like even though, and I want your opinion on this, I felt like even though Trevor had an amazing first possession, obviously with the touchdown, I felt like his presence in the game almost disrupted the flow of the offense, because after the first half, we, especially in the fourth quarter, we stagnant. I think we had 48 total yards in the fourth quarter. Like, we didn't do anything.
Great. And on the ground was... there was nothing there at all. I mean, Evan pointed to it before we came back on. The leading rusher, I believe, was the quarterbacks, right?
Yes, Kelly Bryant was the leading rusher in the entire game with 54 yards on 15 carries. And on the A&M side of the ball, their quarterback, also the leading rusher, Kellen Mond, 10 carries, 33 yards.
Yeah, and a lot of those were just on a couple nice plays down the field. So it wasn't like it was consistent running.
Well, Etienne had 44 yards rushing, and one rush, he had 28 yards.
Which is why I think we brought in Trevor when we did. I think Dabo noticed that we needed something through the air, and Trevor was that spark that we needed in that first quarter. It worked out well early on.
He still did not look completely comfortable or poised in the pocket, and I understand.
No, because he had to roll out a couple times, and that's not the kind of quarterback he is.
And I understand that he's adjusting from the pace of a high school style game to a D1 college game. Like, there's obvious differences in those two types of environments, but at the same time, like when Kelly came back out on the field, just as someone that was watching the game on TV, the offense looked more in sync. It looked like it flowed better. Guys weren't, there wasn't as much indecisiveness.
They looked comfortable.
Yes,
that's what it was. They looked comfortable. They knew what to expect. I mean, you even saw, I want to say it was DeAndre Overton, had a pass thrown to him about 10 yards down the field, and Trevor slung it. I mean, he was not expecting that. You could tell they had not worked.
It was a bullet in there.
Yeah, he had not worked with Trevor as much as he did with Kelly.
Now, T. Higgins may be a different story.
That was a down the field throw, though.
We saw Trevor to T. Higgins a ton in the spring game, and so we knew come regular season, if we're going to see Trevor on the field.
But that's the part that I like seeing about Kelly. And Evan, you might be able to add to this. I love Kelly's down the field throws. I mean, he might not be able to lead guys across the field on slants. He can sure as heck throw it down the field, though.
There's no doubt that Kelly's deep ball has gotten better. It's still not probably as good. It's definitely not as good as Trevor Lawrence's will be. And it might not be as good as Trevor Lawrence's is right now, because we all know Kelly struggled with the deep ball. But because Trevor's good at throwing the deep ball. Kelly has been forced to get better at that, which I think is even more reason that we shouldn't be talking about who should be the starter, who should play more, because I think, and at least in my mind, after watching the performances on Saturday, it's definitely got to be Kelly going forward,
Kelly.
right? I mean,
but what's the benefit of this 2-quarterback system? Like, because
I liked it early on.
No, we're playing Georgia Southern this weekend. You know that everybody on the roster, just
Chase
like
Price
Furman,
warmed up.
is going to get in. So we can't really take this game and actually measure what we would do in a real tight game situation. So for the third game in a row, we're going to see multiple quarterbacks play.
I think the part that I liked about the 2-quarterback system, and don't get me wrong, I think it's going long term. I don't think it's a good fix.
No,
at all.
I don't think it's
But
smart.
for the time being, what I liked about it was that it had the ability to throw the defense off, and it allowed the offense to switch from a more passing approach to kind of a mix
can
between
throw
the
your
running and
offense
passing.
off, though.
But that's the thing; it can't throw your offense off, and at times it seemed like it kind of did that a
Now,
little bit.
Overton in his press conference today said explicitly, he said, as a wide receiver, me and the other guys,
Timing is everything.
He's referring to the other receivers, like, we don't, and these are his words, we don't focus on who's throwing the ball. We're just, we're running our routes. We're trying to hit our marks. And so...
How much do you really believe that?
That's the thing, though.
Yeah,
as I
that's what
sit
they want
there
you to know,
and
though.
I'm listening to it,
That's
and I'm
what they
like,
want you to
yeah,
know.
that's what they want. That's kind of the...
So you're telling me if DeAndre Overton runs an 8-yard button hook, if Trevor Lawrence is playing quarterback, you think, like, in his mind, he's consciously thinking, hey, I'm going to turn around and get absolutely drilled in the chest by this pass? Or do you think he might forget and go, oh, Kelly's going to throw this. This might kind of bobble over my head.
Dude, it's
They
like,
know.
did you see when Jared Goff went undercover in like a D3 school and pranked that team as like the transfer guy? It's like saying that you, as a wide receiver, you think that the D3 quarterback is the exact same as Jared Goff throwing to you.
So
It's not.
So there is a difference. There's,
Oh,
you think-
absolutely.
Okay, so then, again, goes back to the original discussion. Like, why are we still rotating in multiple quarterbacks?
I will say, I don't think you can take this game and 100% say that this system can't work. Because there were times when Trevor...
It'll work down the road. But right now,
No,
Clemson
what I'm
does
trying to
not
say is
need this.
Trevor didn't get as many opportunities as I think he or any of us would have liked to see what he can do when he's comfortable in the
in
pocket.
the A&M game?
That was not the time to try to get
That's
Trevor
what I'm
Lawrence
saying.
comfortable.
Why
at
are we
the college
experimenting?
level.
I'm just saying-
Why are we experimenting right now?
It's not a great time to experiment, but he had to roll out a lot. They were getting a lot of pressure on us early on.
Fair.
Trevor was not comfortable in the pocket at all.
Fair.
If he gets comfortable, like against Georgia Tech, if we have a lot better protection, I think he succeeds a lot more than he did. But he's not a guy that wants to roll out and run the ball.
He's not. When you play a team like Auburn, or you play a team like Georgia, or you play a team like Alabama in a potential playoff game, you're not going to have time to sit there in the pocket. You're going to roll out.
Okay, if
you're
we're still
gonna be under
debating this by
pressure.
the playoff time,
No,
then
I'm
we
just
have a
saying,
different-
like,
we have a
I'm
different
just saying, like, down the
issue.
road, if we're still having this discussion over who who fits the system better, and this 2-quarterback thing becomes like a recurring issue all season, I don't think it helps the team.
Is it a system problem or is it a play calling problem? Because I think multiple people have expressed their displeasure in the play calling of Jeff Scott and Tony Elliott from Saturday
Did you
night.
see Trevor Lawrence try to run like an RPO? He tried to run the ball on 3rd and 4.
There was the designed quarterback run for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I was like, did the offensive coordinators forget
We
who's playing
called a
quarterback?
timeout before that 3rd and 4, and Trevor kept the ball.
So
on
you can.
QB
So
sneak.
wait a minute. You can experiment with who you put on the field, but you can't experiment with the play calling. Is that what you're
It
saying?
depends on where you experiment and with who. You can't experiment with a
I
throwing
see. I
quarterback
didn't
and
realize
have him
those
try
were
to run the ball.
I just feel like Furman and Georgia Southern, and of course, no disrespect to either of these fine football programs, but I feel like both of those teams are much better experimentation opportunities than in front of 100,000 people in Kyle Field at night.
We won the game.
would
I
agree.
could be
We
wrong.
won the game.
We really tried to choke it away there, though, in the
But
fourth
he
quarter.
did bring Trevor in when we were comfortably up by about double digits every time.
That's-
So it wasn't like it was like fourth quarter
And
last
what did
possession.
A&M do, though? They got right back in the game.
Well, yeah, but we didn't convert when we had to.
So I would
no matter who the quarterback
That's
was.
execution.
I would agree with you, Bradley, that the timing of when we brought Trevor in was probably pretty good, but then you see what happens, and the game gets a lot closer than it should be, and then all of a sudden it's, Kelly Bryant to the rescue to save the day. It's like, we didn't trust you at first, but now we trust you with this whole game right now. Go do something great, and that's not fair to either quarterback to say, hey, we think you're good enough to win, and then when Trevor Lawrence isn't good enough to win, we go, Kelly, come back, hurry,
But
we need you.
it showed that Kelly's capable.
Well, of
which
course,
is something we probably
knew
didn't.
that. We knew that.
Who did not know that Kelly was not a capable quarterback?
Kelly led us to the playoff last year.
I know he's capable, but it showed that he's a lot more capable than we thought Trevor might have been in that situation.
Listen,
we knew that already
having
too.
Trevor
Did we, though?
having Trevor come into the game multiple times and have to be replaced by Kelly probably didn't help the self-esteem. Now, you could argue that self-esteem doesn't matter. Okay, whatever. Point is that he had no opportunity for growth in that AM environment. That's not the type of situation that you need to have a true freshman come in and expect to win the game. He's not going to throw 64-yard touchdown passes to T. Higgins every time.
He might.
No. And even
it's not.
But even when
might.
he does, and this is kind of like the box score inside of the box score, that was all T. Higgins doing. I mean, like, yes, Trevor Lawrence gets credit for it.
It was
stat sheet.
It was probably a bad idea.
It was a great
honestly.
throw, though.
It was
a good
the throw that it needed to be, but T made the play that it had to be.
Most wide receivers aren't able to make that play.
No, heck no.
Amari Rodgers ain't coming down with that pass.
Debatable.
Okay, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to knock Amari Rodgers.
Now we're getting
here.
real controversial. Let me tell you.
Let me quiz y'all. See how much you paid attention on Saturday night. There was a third quarterback in the game
Hunter
for Clemson.
Renfro.
That's exactly
Hunter
right.
Renfro.
Yes, I even looked to the A&M guys and I was like,
for
you played
one.
quarterback in high school.
Yeah.
He got a pretty good throw too, but Kelly was in like double, triple coverage.
Yeah.
So an incomplete pass was about as good as we could have hoped
Yeah,
for there.
I guess Dabo tuned in on Thursday night and watched the Philly special.
One last thing before we got to go to break. Does it mean anything that ETN got the most carries or the fact that
Kelly Bryant had the most carries.
I'm sorry. Well,
out of the running back.
out of running back.
Out of the running
back.
back.
Sorry.
Look at rushing for a second. Feaster had -1 total yards. Choice only had 3 carries. ETN got the ball 8 times.
Did Feaster carry the ball? Did you say that?
Feaster got
Twice.
two carries for -1
I
yards.
didn't even see him do
So let's talk about this. Does that matter? Does that matter?
I think that matters.
I think it does.
I think you could argue that matters more than the quarterback play
I would
from
agree.
Saturday night.
I would agree.
No, I think we knew ETN was going to get the majority of the carries, though.
But he still only got 8.
He got 8 single-digit carries for your
But
top running back.
we knew
He got
we weren't
half
gonna-
as many carries as the quarterback did.
But we found out real quick we can't run the ball against them. I mean, it was very...
Especially if you don't
obvious.
try.
Especially if you
It
do
was
design.
very obvious early.
Listen,
Irvius?
Would you? It was very obvious. Well, when y'all are talking over me, it's kind of hard to hear what I'm trying to say.
Design
all right?
quarterback runs where Kelly holds the ball. It's like the Cam Newton play. I hate those play calls where he sits there and he waits for the hole to open up and then he just runs into the
So
line.
you're not a Le'Veon Bell fan then, I guess.
We're sticking to college. We're not talking about football. This is not an NFL discussion. The point is those play calls.
I'm just saying, I'd rather not
infuriate me.
continuously try and continuously be wrong and continuously not get any yards, rather than say, oh, we tried it a little bit, it didn't work, and we stopped it because it wasn't working.
Well, the passing game sure wasn't working either. You look at the combined 3 guys who technically threw a pass for Clemson on Saturday night. Their stat line, the 3 of them combined, well, mainly Kelly and Trevor combined, their stat line is still way worse than Kellen Mond.
The passing game is where we gained most of our yards.
Yes, but look, Etienne got 8 carries, 44 yards. That's 5.5 yards a carry.
How
That's
many rushes?
not bad.
How many rushes total did Clemson have?
32. For,
How much,
for
what,
115
what
yards.
was the
that's
average?
3.6 yards.
That's not good.
That's decent.
That's a first down.
First down, that's 2nd and 6. That's good.
I think that's 3 carries to get a first down.
That's 3 carries. And
that's all you need to be.
There's about 3 or 4 in there that were about 10 to 15 yards,
which
made up the majority of that.
I still think that this points to an issue in the play calling, as Evan pointed out a few minutes ago, where we did not run the ball enough and we didn't give it to guys like Feaster. I mean, Feaster got 2 carries.
The only knock I have against that is there's no blocking. Etienne's not a blocking running back, and Feaster and Choice didn't get in enough to give Kelly that extra blocker.
I question the play call, the fact that Kelly had more runs than any of the running backs almost by.
And if we're talking receiving too, as far as the running backs are concerned, Etienne had 3 receptions. No other running back caught a pass.
Yeah. We tried too many. We tried a lot of screenplays too.
Yeah,
there was no balance.
No balance at all.
No.
We'll see.
I want to get to more of this after the break.
I was about to say we got to take a quick break, but we'll probably dive into a little bit of this discussion, especially the secondary for Clemson. We have a lot that we want to touch on,
and special teams,
and special teams. So we'll take a quick break and then come right back. Stick with us.
Clemson alumni Friar Dixon, a third-generation insurance professional, is proud to be part of the Clemson community. He lives and works here, and he can help make sure you and your family are protected with the right insurance coverage. Call Friar Dixon at 643-2895, and you'll be in good hands. For the protection you want and the service you need, it's Friar Dixon Allstate in Clemson. 643-2895, Allstate. Are you in good hands? Subject to terms, conditions, and availability.
Relax, Tigertown. Founders Federal Credit Union is in Clemson. Our full-service office is located on Old Greenville Highway next to Walmart Neighborhood Market, just 2 miles from campus. And with 4 on-campus ATMs, Founders is the only financial institution you need in Clemson. Visit RelaxJoinFounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. Go Tigers! Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA and a proud partner of the Clemson Tigers.
Cycle Bar is an extremely upbeat and fun way to work out. Cycle Bar is a spinning class, but so much more. Great environment for beginner to advanced riders. Cycle Bar is Greenville's only premier indoor cycling facility, featuring state-of-the-art amenities and a cycle theater with stats system, music videos, and dynamic lighting. Ask about their special themed rides, private parties, and group rides available. Reserve your space today at greenville.cyclebar.com.
Weather is changing. Get your vehicle ready for rain, ice, and snow with the new set of Yokohama tires from R&R Tire Express. It's easy. $20 gets you started with R&R Tire Express's Everyone's Approved 6-month same-as-cash program. Yokohama's durable technology keeps you safe on the road with all different road conditions. And at R&R, installation, flat repair, and roadside assistance, a $300 value is absolutely free. Yokohama tires, just $20 with R&R's 6 months same-as-cash. Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson. RNRTires.com.
Big O Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram is your local family-owned automotive dealer in the upstate. Life, liberty, and happiness is what we're all about. Big O has a huge inventory of new and used vehicles at the lowest price. Cars, SUVs, minivans, Jeeps, and trucks, new and pre-owned. You name it, we've got it. Trust us to deliver your next vehicle today. Visit us online at bigododge.com or check us out in Greenville under that big American flag on the Motor Mile.
You have cracks in your driveway, sidewalk, or settling pool decks? Why tear it out when you can lift it? Canty Foundation Specialists can raise concrete slabs back to its original position using our patented polylevel process. Call Canty today at 864-475-1671. Don't replace it, raise it. 475-1671 or visit us at cantyfoundationsc.com.
M&L Mobile Home Supplies is the largest retail mobile home parts store in the upstate. They're your source for heat pumps, heating, and air replacement parts, doors, tubs, showers, vinyl windows, skirting, decks, water heaters, everything you need. And they'll install vapor barriers, insulated floors, ductwork, and heat pumps. For 32 years, the staff at M&L Mobile Home Supplies has served the upstate's mobile home needs. M&L Mobile Home Supplies, 1100 28 Bypass in Anderson, or online at mnlsupply.com.
You probably drove right by ACD Sports in Easley while traveling 123 to and from home games. The ACD Sports Clemson Fan Shop has relocated to the Hamrick Shopping Center in a larger, beautiful store dedicated to Clemson fans, parents, alumni, and local high schools. ACD Sports offers a unique variety of Clemson items with the best selection of ladies' wear in the area. New items arrive weekly, so check the store regularly. Look for the ACD Sports Clemson Fan Shop signs on 123. Y'all in? Go Tigers!
And now, back to Jay, Bradley, and Evan.
Welcome back. Thanks for spending your Monday evening with us on the radio. After further review, Jay Smith, Bradley Kendall, Evan McDowell, trying to do our best breaking down college football for you this fine Monday evening.
I think we're breaking it down pretty well.
I think
I'm
so
also
far, so
waiting
good.
for you to mess up on the day that of the week it is, because we've had 3 different days
It's
that we've done our show over the last
at
couple of
first,
years.
it kind of throws me off, but I think I've kind of adjusted to the whole Monday time now. I think originally the show was Monday
Tuesdays.
nights.
It was Tuesdays.
Was it?
I thought it was Tuesday.
I thought initially it was Monday, but I don't know. I digress. We'll move on. We had been talking about the Clemson A&M game. We broke down a good portion of that, but a couple of things actually, we failed to get to secondary for Clemson and then special teams for Clemson.
And the center also.
And
the offensive line. I mean,
yeah, it's a lot of issues.
But start with the secondary.
Start secondary.
We'll start with
the
that.
secondary.
I thought the secondary, going into this season, that was the one question I had. Because we knew the defensive line was going to be good. I thought the secondary would be better. There were times last season where it was a little suspect, and I thought, especially in that Syracuse game with Eric Dungy, they can really attack that secondary and pick it apart. I thought coming into the season, though, we had a little more experience. I thought Isaiah Simmons was going to be that one guy that steps up and really takes control of that back end of the defense. And he went down, I think, with an injury about third quarter. And after that, Mon lit us. I mean, Mon lit us up the whole game. But after that, they were just picking us apart.
What was even more impressive about the fact that he was lighting us up, Kellen Mond, was we were getting pressure with the D-line almost every single
We were also getting held
Snap. Oh, look. I think I saw a tweet. It might have been. I think it was by Qualk. He tweeted after the game. He was like, for 50 some odd minutes and something seconds. Like I think it was like 59 minutes and 14 seconds. Like the holding call against Clemson, hasn't been called, but now it was something about the last.
The one play where it doesn't even matter.
Yeah,
it got called.
It got called. So we knew that was going to happen. But again, even with the holding, the D line. Even when they rotated guys in, like Xavier Thomas, I mean, all those guys were getting to the quarterback consistently.
Yeah. The thing that kind of worries me, though, and this has in the past, is when a dual threat quarterback is able to roll out and make things happen. And we saw that with Lamar Jackson a couple years ago. When they get outside the pocket and are able to, work down the sidelines, 5 guys downfield, that's when we start getting
to cover your man for that.
That's when we start really getting in trouble. And we saw that a lot with some blown coverages. We saw some guys that weren't quite doing their assignments. I mean, there were a couple plays that I remember where it looked like some guys were in zone and some guys were in man. I mean, you didn't even know what the defense was doing as a whole. So I think A&M and Jimbo, for that matter, did a great job at confusing our defense and really just got creative. They were very unpredictable with what they were doing.
It was the first quarterback to throw for over 400 yards against a Clemson team since 2013. Obviously, Jameis Winston was the quarterback to do that. So it's not common for Clemson. And
you know who else coached Jameis Winston as a quarterback?
Jimbo. And like we talked about this during break briefly, I mean, Jimbo always has a great game plan against the Tigers and Dabo Swinney. He's proven, even when he loses, like he always comes more than enough prepared. So
I said that last week. They will have a great game plan. Just can they execute?
And they were able to really, in a lot of ways, not only catch the secondary off guard, but consistently burned them. I mean, there were multiple blown assignments.
But that's the thing,
where guys were wide open.
And they addressed this after the game. That's something that Brent Venables can fix. Later on in the season. This has nothing to do with the talent level on Clemson's defense. It's all about execution, being in the right spot at the right time, and just doing your job. And that's something that Venables will address going forward.
Something that we also did want to mention is Falcinelli under center now.
Yeah.
And I to be honest, like again, it's something that, I mean, Jake Guillermo obviously was quietly consistent. We didn't really have any snap issues. I'm not going to say that Falcinelli had like a ton of snap issues, but there were moments in the game.
Certainly didn't help.
There were moments in the game where it came at a very inopportune time, and I think that can go a long way, whether you really even think about it or not. I think those kinds of mishandled snaps, or snaps that are low or snaps that are high, can go a long way to disrupting the rhythm of an offense.
Yeah, if you're trying to block an SEC defensive line, A&M's not the greatest D line in the world, but it's still an SEC. They got some dudes on that line. Yeah. The last thing you want to worry about is a botched snap. And I think our O-line at times allowed that kind of pressure to get to Kelly, and it probably started with those botched snaps.
Our O-line is going up against our D-line in practice. So they have practice against guys that can get around the edge or put some sort of move on.
It looked like they were facing our D-line at times, honestly.
Yeah, well, Cleveland Farrell's probably one of the best pass rushers in college football right now.
And that's what I was going back when I was saying that I didn't think Trevor was as comfortable as he wanted to be and didn't get to showcase what he can do when he's comfortable like that. There were times he had to roll out and make things happen, and that's just not the kind of quarterback he really wants to be.
I do think, as you touched on earlier a couple minutes ago, it's something that can be fixed through practice, repetition. Yeah. I don't think it's like a major issue. It was just something I noticed throughout the game. I was like, wow, I guess I kind of took Jake Guillermo and other centers that Clemson's had in the past for granted because, and again, it's not to say Falcinelli is a bad center. It's just to say that there's room for improvement there. One of the other things, the last thing I want to touch about on this game, special teams. Bradley, you weren't too overly impressed with Spire's punting.
I wasn't at all. I mean, going towards the end of the game, we saw that rugby-style kick that we tried. That's an NET still kind of kick. That's what he specialized in. Not the kind of time to be, you talked about experimenting. Not the kind of time to be experimenting with that kind of punting that late in the game. That's the kind of the one knock I've had against Clemson, and one of the real reasons I thought Alabama's been so consistent over the years, that ability to flip the field.
Yeah.
And when we got...
Well, A&M's punter. A&M's punter was lights.
I was about to say, that's the only reason you didn't like what Spires was doing, because Braden Mann averaged 55 yards a punt on Saturday night. His longest one,
71 yards.
73 yards.
That was from
he kicked that thing 3/4 of the way down the field.
That was from his end zone.
That was from the back of his end zone, correct? From the very back of the end zone.
He booted that thing. He had concrete in his
You should have heard the crowd when Amari Rogers was setting up at like the 50. When as soon as that thing started sailing,
flew over his head 20 yards.
It was like the Little League World Series where that kid was in center field and saw that home run just sail over his head and just looked. He didn't even run. He just looked. It was crazy. And the kid,
And it wasn't like Spires was punting that terribly. I mean, he's got 8 punts for an average of 40 yards. His longest one's 51 yards. Like, you can't really be mad about that.
No, but
he looks a lot worse when the other guy's kicking it 55 yards every time.
When you get in 3rd and 15 and you end up getting a 4th and long from back in your deep in your own territory, that's something that in the back of your head you're going, man, it'd be nice to have a 70-something yard punt right now.
There was a shank late in the game, if I
that's the one I'm
recall
talking about,
correctly,
the
in the fourth quarter of the rugby one, where it ended up at like the 50-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And if he'd have just actually punted the ball, they'd have been at the 30 or the 35.
Yeah, and that's where I came down, and I believe that was the drive they had that controversial finish.
Now, it doesn't mean that special teams was the difference in this football game. I don't think the special teams did not help Clemson, but it certainly did not hinder them as much as the secondary's blown execution.
I think it was because we were so excited, at least I was, about how well they played last week just across the board with, Cornell Powell, Amari Rogers having good kick and punt returns. Hugel looked nice coming off, the ACL injury. And then this past Saturday, Cornell Powell returned 1 kick for 16 yards. Amari Rogers returned 2 punts for a total of 9 yards, and Greg Hugel kicked 4 extra points. So it was a very ho-hum. Yeah, it was like, special teams played really well against Furman, and then, special teams basically didn't play against Texas A&M. So you're right. It didn't hurt us, but it definitely didn't help.
Though, by any means. We got a lot to work on with that, 100%. But the kickoff unit was great. Potter still was
Potter is
for
a guy his
zone.
size 5'8". I mean, the ability for him to kick the ball, it's just incredible.
And after years of watching Clemson football before Chandler Catanzaro came along and his successor since then, and Clemson not having a reliable kicker, it's nice to see somebody that you have confidence in is A, going to make a field goal in Hugel, and B, going to make a touchback in BT Potter.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm curious to see what Hugel does in a couple games from now if he gets kind of a high pressure kick. What he can do, because we know we've seen him do it in the past. But
yeah, I mean,
after that injury,
he has the experience. I mean, he's done it before. We do briefly need to touch on some games upcoming this week. We had too much fun talking about the Clemson A&M game. One of them that I wanted to highlight quickly: FSU is traveling to the Carrier Dome. This one kicks off at noon on Saturday. I got the orange.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn here. I want to go Syracuse. I think Florida State is going to find a way to win. The only thing I would say though is I think Syracuse with Eric Dungy is going to light up Florida State's defense. I think they have the every bit ability to.
I mean, right now Syracuse is favored. We talked about this before. Going on the air.
But I think outside of that, Syracuse is probably outmanned and out-talented in every single position. And I know Florida State.
You say that, but Samford probably thought the same thing this past Saturday.
I know
Florida messed around and won in Tallahassee.
But I know Syracuse has played 2 opponents that they're not even worth mentioning because they were averaging 60 points a game. But their offense has been putting up great numbers. I mean, they're averaging 500 yards a game, and Florida State's averaging 420 yards let up a game. So they've allowed 420.
Where is
this
game at? Is it in
the Carrier Dome? Watch out, Florida State. Syracuse is going to win.
I want to pick Florida State. I want to have them at least get me one win.
Florida State is not going to make a bowl game this year, not at the rate that they're playing.
I mean, if I picked Florida State, is that technically an upset
It
pick?
is an upset,
I feel like it kind of is. And even though
it'd be more surprising,
you feel like the wheels are kind of getting loose on the Florida State wagon. They are falling apart. Jimbo Fisher did them no favors before skipping town, and I just feel bad for Willie Taggart because this is not his problem at all. He's just a guy that's got to deal with it.
Oh, it is now.
But you figure at some point Florida State's got to make something out of nothing, right?
I think Francois is a good enough quarterback where they're eventually going to find a way to outscore it.
Until their offensive line can figure out how to stop somebody.
I know.
They're not doing anything significant.
All right, so who you got? I got Syracuse.
I'll take Florida State, not confidently.
Oh, what a
I feel like Syracuse is probably a safe pick here, but like I said, at some point you figure Florida State's got a safe face. I don't think it's this week.
I'll pick them until I'm wrong.
All right, gotta go orange. LSU
until I'm right, I should say.
Traveling to Auburn.
This is the game of the week right here. I don't care about Ohio State TCU anymore.
A big game. Now, do you think that do you think that LSU has a chance here against Auburn's defense?
Yeah, they got a chance. I mean, they're both highly, highly talented teams. I think when you look at the quarterback situation, though, I think it goes back to where we talked.
Stidham is on the same level as
No. You got to let me finish here. When we're going to the quarterback situation, though, I think, like we said with the Washington game, I think Stidham is going to be the difference maker in this game compared to Joe Burrow. Burrow had a nice game. Miami's not exactly a great team, though, and it looks good on paper. But if you actually watch the game,
LSU's only averaging less than 150 yards passing a game. Their offensive production,
I think if
the only reason we're like, Joe Burrow is so good is because LSU's quarterbacks have been so bad recently.
Exactly.
By comparison, of course,
if you compare anyone to Danny Etling, it's going to look great.
Auburn's going to dismantle LSU.
I don't think it's going to be dismantling. I think LSU's defense is good enough to keep them in the game, but
it's going to be like Georgia, South Carolina.
If Auburn's able to shut down what Washington had, LSU's probably going to be a little bit easier of a task.
LSU's in
I think
trouble.
they'll be okay.
I would think so too. In addition to this game being at Jordan-Hare, so I think LSU probably could keep it relatively close, but I think we're gonna go 3 for 3 Auburn pick here.
And I'll take the Tigers. The Auburn Tigers, I should say.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Tigers will win this game, I can tell you
All right,
that.
what about this West Virginia road trip to NC State this coming weekend? This kicks off at 3:30.
That'll be in a hurricane, won't it?
It will be a hurricane.
will be.
Second year in a row, NC State's had to play in a
about to
hurricane.
say, NC State's got some
think
history with that.
because of the bad weather and the fact that it's on the road. Now, like I said, I got West Virginia going to the playoff, but NC State, if it becomes a game where it's low scoring and it's messy and it's sloppy football, it could definitely be one to watch.
I like Ryan Finley, but after
He won't be throwing the ball.
But you like Will Greer more.
Oh, I love Will Greer.
yeah.
But after
exactly.
Finley kind of struggled towards the tail end of last season, he hasn't really picked up from the beginning of last season at all going into this season. He's really just kind of continued that struggling, and I think Will Greer, even in the rain, they're just going to outscore him. I don't think it's going to be an easy game for NC State at all, and I think West Virginia gets the dub.
So you think it's not even close?
I'll give him two. I'll get 2 touchdown win for West Virginia.
Who you got, Evan?
If I wasn't convinced West Virginia was going to win this game before the season even started, the fact that NC State in their opener got pushed to the brink by James Madison 24-13, I'm definitely convinced West Virginia is going to win this game. I don't know how close it'll be because of the weather conditions, but if you limit both those quarterbacks passing, I think it's anybody's game because there's no doubt that the strength of both of these teams is their respective quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah, and the wide receivers, too.
Yeah, so if you take the passing game out with all the rain and wind, it could get funky.
If it's a close game or if it's a messy game, sloppy game, and quarterbacks can't throw the ball, like it could be one to watch. We don't have a ton of time, unfortunately, to get to the other games that we had queued up. But the Clemson A&M game was just too much fun to talk about.
We'll preview some of those games something later this week.
Too much fun.
I think I went like 4-6 last week, so hopefully I can rebound.
Maybe so. Well, hey, always a pleasure bringing you another edition of After Further Review. We're going to have a lot to talk about in the coming weeks. Be sure to tune in. For Bradley, Evan, and myself, we will see you next time.